Big as the what? That's right. Big as the what? Big as the Super Bowl. That's going to be a little bit of a theme on today's show. Big as the Super Bowl. Because, there's the Super Bowl halftime show and the controversy that has ensued on the internet streets. And the fact that the Indiana Fever are drawing like the NFL. Well, not quite like the NFL, but aren't losing anything due to the NFL. I made a comment. It was yesterday, right? Yesterday was Sunday. Sometimes I lose track of days because they're all the same to me. But anyhow, I made a comment like Indiana Fever greater than the NFL. And I said that because I was watching the Fever. I was watching the Indiana Fever and not football. Which, if you had told me in a previous life that I'd be watching the WNBA over the NFL, I would have told you you were crazy. And maybe that says something about me. Let me first get that out of the way. That might say something about me because I like basketball more than I like football. And in the past, I would have watched the NBA over the NFL, even a regular season game over a playoff game at times. I just prefer basketball to football. It is my favorite sport. It always has been. So perhaps that is a commentary on past me. But regardless, the scenario would have been where I never would have watched the WNBA over the NFL. It just wouldn't happen. That's just the truth. And instead I did. And I didn't even contemplate flipping over to the NFL. It wasn't like, oh, you know what? Let me check it. In fact, I flipped over, and here's the rising tide lifting all boats. I flipped over to the Aces and Liberty game. That's what I flipped over to. That was on ESPN, by the way. Shouts to Ryan Rucco on the call. Shouts to Polar Seltzer, who still hasn't come through with my sponsorship yet. But that's what I flipped to instead of the NFL games. And I just saw this before I went live, which is fitting. Friday night, the Fever were also head-to-head with the NFL on Friday night. And even opposite the NFL, Caitlin Clark and the Fever generated yet another 7-figure audience Friday night. So despite the fact that the NFL was on, they were on streaming, I think, that night, right? But regardless, the NFL was on, and Clark and the Fever still got 1 million viewers on Ion again. On Ion, which no one had ever heard of until this season, for the most part. So I ask you, are the Fever the best show in sports? I think Caitlin Clark's the best show in sports. I think she is the single most entertaining and engaging athlete in the world right now. I mean, and when you talk about basketball players, she offensively, she's as good a basketball player as I've ever watched. Relatively speaking, obviously there are differences between men and women biologically and physically. But from ability and well-rounded offensive ability, she's the best basketball player all around, right up there, as good as anybody I've ever seen. I think she needs to, when she refines that mid-range game and gets that go-to in-between move, might be the best player I've ever seen across the board. Defensively, there's a difference. But maybe I'm being hyperbolic. I don't know, but she's good. Let's put it that way. And when you look at some of the stuff, it's kind of staggering. I did a video earlier on the standings, and the Fever have already won more games this year than they did in the last 2 years combined. So that speaks to her value on the floor as a player. And on top of that, I don't know if people are digesting the one stat, but Clark now has as many career games of at least 25 points and 10 assists as any player ever. She's tied with Sabrina Ionescu. career games. I mean, it shows you that guard play was not at a premium for much of the WNBA's history. I mean, I think that's one thing it shows you. But yeah, like in her first season, she's got as many career 25 and point and 10 assist games as anybody ever. She's going to break the all-time assist record maybe in the next game. She's got a chance to break the three-point record for a season. She's got a chance to set the career mark for the most 20 and 10 games this year. If she doesn't do it this year, she's going to do it at the very beginning of next year. Yeah. I mean, she's producing more points and assists than any player ever. And her teammates are stepping up. You know, Leah Boston's been great this year, accepting a lesser role with a higher profile, if you will. Kelsey Mitchell has been electric this year, of course. Lexi Hull has become that new foundational piece. The big question is the power forward spot. Melissa Smith is not getting it done consistently enough. She just doesn't make quick enough decisions or good enough decisions. Not good enough defensively. I thought Temi Fagbenle did a nice job in the last game, but she's very limited offensively. That's the one position that would put them over the top and basically make them unbeatable. But it's incredible what's happening and going on right now. Big as the what? Big as the Super Bowl. I mean, it's because I was having this discussion on a on the side with Kevin and AJ, who are, of course, regulars here, and I told them, you can ask them, I'm sure they'll verify this. I told them in the group chat we were talking about when the NFL season comes along, and I was like, the NFL season ain't going to do nothing to Caitlin Clark. Not going to matter. And the Indiana Fever, not going to matter. The single biggest needle mover I've ever seen in my entire career. It's wild. It really is. And to see it not impacted at all by the NFL is pretty crazy. Now, the playoffs are coming up. Unfortunately, like, the season is short. You know, the WNBA has not made enough revenue in the past to extend their season and the like, and we'll see how things get adjusted over the years. It's a very quick season, relatively speaking, and there are only 4 regular season games left before the playoffs. Those playoffs are going to go bananas, though. That's for sure. They're going to go bananas, and then we got to see what happens in the offseason. Obviously, I think there'll be a lot of interest in women's college basketball coming back. Paige Beckers is a star. Juju Watkins is an emerging star. You know, you got the big programs in Connecticut and LSU and South Carolina. I like who's the girl's name? Fu Wiley from South Carolina. You know, there are a lot of talent in college basketball, and that's going to, you know, do really well. It remains to be seen what Caitlin, that's her phrase, right? It remains to be seen what she's going to do in the offseason. I hope she plays basketball somewhere. Really doesn't matter where. To be honest, doesn't matter. You know, that's what I keep saying to y'all. Does not matter. Wherever she goes is where everybody else goes. That's where the eyeballs go. It doesn't matter if it's opposite the NFL. Doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m. Eastern time overseas somewhere. It does not matter. We're witnessing history in real time. And she's making the history look routine as she does it, where she didn't even play particularly well yesterday and had 26 points and 12 assists. In a win, mind you. In a win. So it was good timing today that Sports Media Watch tweet went out, because I was just talking about choosing the Fever over the NFL, and the Fever beat the NFL. Or, sorry, no, they didn't. Now I'm getting ahead of my skis. The Fever did not lose steam because of the NFL. And, you know, I have a stock line. I've done a lot of sports talk radio in my day, and a lot of it's national, right? And my stock line is that the NFL is the single most popular thing in this country. You know, the NFL decided we're going to play on Christmas, just, you know, like Debo snatching the chain from the NBA. Like, that's how big the NFL is. The Taylor Swift thing was so big because obviously of who Taylor Swift is, but the attachment to the NFL as well. And that huge fan base. And the millions and millions and millions and millions of people. But you got to remember, the Iowa championship game, South Carolina, 18 million viewers. 18 million. Those are NFL numbers. Or close. They're certainly much bigger than NBA or MLB numbers. And the WNBA, I think, has got to be passing hockey now and just NHL and average numbers. And then, again, head-to-head, and the NFL's not impacting the numbers. That's pretty cool. Who did the Eagles play again? I forget who they played. I actually watched some of that game. I just forget who they played. They won. I know that. The Packers. That's right. It was the game Jordan Love got hurt at the end because I did turn it on. But, yeah, that's that. I guess that says it all, right? I'm like trying to remember who the Eagles played in a football game because I was so consumed by Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Let's get to you guys. First super chat, Kevin Zwicker, RIP to Reese's season. Look, it sucks. It's a bummer. Of course, you never want to see anybody go down with injury. That sucks. It's not really a huge deal in the grand scheme of things because the season was almost over. There's only a handful of games. It's not a severe injury. I mean, I think I saw her say on her TikTok 4 to 6 weeks. So, if it had happened earlier in the season, it'd be something she'd come back from. It's just the timing of it. I mean, it's an unfortunate end to her season. But I think Angel has an opportunity to really get better in the offseason if she can finish around the rim. She can add a face-up jump shot, both foul line extended and three-point line. But I'm not so sure the sky, and I say this because I believe it, I'm not so sure the sky won't be better in the meantime because they're going to share the ball a little bit more. And Angel was taking a lot of shots very inefficiently. So those shots are going to go to people who are making them more efficiently just because everybody's making their shots more efficiently. So I'm not so sure the Sky in the short term can't be a better basketball team. I'm not so sure. Boxing and Bulldogs, Caitlin Clark MVP in a sports world with no politics and social agendas. She is the runaway favorite. Look, A'ja Wilson has had a tremendous season. Like, let's not get it twisted either. It's not politics that are making a case for A'ja Wilson. Maybe it was the, A'ja was sort of the presumptive winner before the season started, and no one could be mentioned otherwise. But Wilson, on the merits, is having a tremendous season and deserves all the love she's getting for MVP. But when you just talk about pure value for a team, I mean, it's hard to argue the case against Caitlin when you look at the standings and the numbers and your eyes. Element Gold says, hey, Robin, today is my special day. Oh, happy birthday, Element Gold. You were the one giving me a hard time before. JD Mac 44 that must be hilarious. Ernesto, good evening, Robin. What I love, all sports, multiple platforms to watch all sports. Look, I mean, today's day and age, it's getting a little easier to have multiple screens and whatnot. That's because that's one of the issues with streaming is like once you go, if you're watching on one screen, once you go to the device itself or the platform itself, like Amazon or Peacock, you can't like switch to the other channel. You got to exit out and then go back in. So that makes it a little bit more arduous. This, I think, is a joke, Michael. If you want my honest opinion, the WNBA not ranking Caitlin Clark in the MVP ladder as part of the top. It's embarrassing. Like, that's embarrassing at this point. What is the purpose? Who are we pleasing? What overlords are we serving at that point? There is no way there are 5 better MVP candidates than Caitlin Clark. That is pure insanity. at this point in time. There's no way anybody with a functioning brain actually believes that. I don't believe those would be baked into the ratings. I don't know how Sunday is going to work. I saw somebody ask about Sunday, but I'll when I find that comment again, there's so many comments, it's hard. When I find that comment again, I'll show you. But the Sunday, because they weren't on, as far as I understand it, they weren't on national TV on Sunday. They were on like ESPN3. I watched the game on my computer. Camille says, absolutely the best show. This was it. Bro God says, salute. What were the ratings for Sunday's Fever game? I don't know, but either way, it's not going to be fair. Like I said, they're not out yet, but they wasn't on the Aces and Liberty game was on ESPN. I watched the Fever game on my computer because I couldn't watch it on my TV. Yeah, special on TV and in person, it blows your mind. Marty Barkley, CC has captivated the attention of casual sports fans because of the way she plays. Why are the main channels not showing the Fever games? I get Ion and watch every game. And it's I mean, I remember at the beginning of the season, it was, I think, 38 of their 40 games were chosen for national TV. So if I have that number right, I'm guessing Sunday's game was one of the two. This all happens before the season, right? Like, it's not updated. Sometimes I think there's room for wiggle room, but in general, these decisions are made in advance. They're not made on the spot. So if I have that number right, I believe that yesterday's game was one of the two games for the entire season that were not chosen for national television. Now, when that's chosen, it's with the broadcast partners. So some of those are going to be on ABC. Some of them are going to be on ESPN. Some of them are going to be on CBS Sports Network, I think has a deal with them. And some of them are going to be on NBA TV or Ion, based on the pre-existing deals and what other networks are doing and what other sports are there. Because, there's no way that, let's say on a Monday night, ESPN was going to prioritize a WNBA game over an NFL game. And same goes for some of these other networks on Sundays and whatever, because the WNBA was not thought of in that light. And it still took a while. I think it took till like after the All-Star break before people realized, oh, this is not a fluke or a fad or a flash in the pan. And you see a lot of the media companies starting to catch up now, and they're catching up now to the point where things are going to seem like they're late. But better late than never exists for a reason. Let's say a bunch of projects get off the ground at the end of this season, right before the postseason. That means they're ready for the start of next season. So that's kind of what happens there. They chose before the season, and I don't think they realized. I think they knew, they knew enough to make 38 of the whatever games national TV before the season, but I don't think they realized just how big and just how consistent it was going to remain. I mean, maybe the WNBA didn't either, because they put the Fever 11 games in 20 days to start the season. Maybe they thought they needed to rack up the revenue while it was still hot and just didn't know it was going to remain hot. AJ, conspiracy at the House of the Mouse. First, they don't put her top billing on Sunday. Then they don't include her in the MVP rankings. Yeah, well, they've been dogging her for months now. And Kevin mentions that I did tell them that the NFL was not going to impact their numbers. Michael says, Robin, she is the best show. She's producing records in her first year that it took others a career to produce. I just explained. There is no explanation. I can't explain it because there is no explanation. CC for MVP says Abs Scotland. Best show defo. Boxing and Bulldogs. I believe Caitlin is as good or better relative to other female players as any other basketball player who ever lived. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Bud Tuning, she's the most intense player. I mean, NBA players get paid a lot. Those seasons are long. I mean, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the NBA guys, so I don't want to say they don't care. Um, but there are things about the NBA that have bothered me in recent years. Load management is one, though I understand why, but as a general principle, it bothers me. So does the foul baiting. That bothers me a lot. And yeah, I think it sends the All-Star game sends a bad look at the way that the WNBA All-Star game was played versus the NBA All-Star game. The NBA All-Star game, which I used to love, has become a complete embarrassment. Nike Rawhide says, I have 2 large screens. One screen is NFL Red Zone, other is Fever Dream. 80% of my site was directed at Clark's game. T Smiles says, Clark looked really ill. Migraine last game. Hope Indy can expand their bench so she doesn't have to play 40-plus in the future. I think Erica Wheeler's actually done a nice job in the bench minutes of late when she's been brought in to spell Caitlin. But yeah, Caitlin's basically playing the whole game every game. Yeah, I mean, no one's arguing this. CC is definitely the one for the WNBA. Yes, they haven't produced the same interest as Caitlin, but that doesn't mean they can't produce interest. I always say it's better for, look, Caitlin's better than them, in my opinion. She's better than anyone, but they're damn good. And the more the sport grows as a whole, both now and going forward, the better that is for the way Caitlin Clark is viewed historically. Because if it's just her for the rest of her career, that's not the way it works. Tiger Woods brought up golf. Michael Jordan brought up basketball. Not in the unrivaled league. 3-on-3 is boring. Well, it's going to be 3-on-3 full court. Anywhere. I say it selfishly. I want her to play basketball anywhere. And I'm telling you right now, I mean that as selfishly as possible. Because it is selfish. Laura Dawson, that game yesterday had me stressed. They play a lot of stressful games, that's for sure. Night Owl says 96 more points will give her a 20-point average. 18 more threes will break Sabrina's all-time record. Yeah, she's averaged 4.6 threes a game over the last 5. So if she keeps that rate up, she will break the all-time three-point record too. She needs just 11 assists to break the all-time assist record. I was watching both games at the same time. It was a bad Friday. I was watching SmackDown too. So what I did was, because I did Busted Open, the big pro wrestling show on Sirius XM, with Denise Salcedo, who I do the SmackDown shows on her channel on Friday nights. So we didn't have the SmackDown show on Friday. So what I did was I watched the Clark and Lynx game. And then I watched the end of the Eagles and Packers game. And then I watched SmackDown on record. And I was at home with my kids. My wife was in Portugal for a wedding. And I was watching the kids. And of course, Raj and Ronnie, my 2 oldest, wanted to stay up. I was successful in putting Big Ro to bed. But those 2 were then up till 12 or 1 watching SmackDown with me after we watched the basketball game and the football game. I hope she plays somewhere. Like I said, Spinks the cat. That's a long off season. If she plays overseas, everybody's going to find a way to watch. NHL in the U.S. not close to WNBA. I don't think anymore. Well, they're going to adjust John and Brendan Navoa family with the new CBA. Jaylon says, I hope I said that right. 2-0 since Kennedy came back. Well, yeah, Kennedy Carter's the best player on the Chicago Sky. Full stop. You get to protect players, I think. Myron War. CC is the greatest passer I've ever seen and a good logo shooter. If you have to guard as soon as she passes half court, she's so hard to guard. I've never seen like this in men's. Yeah, she shoots from further away than Steph Curry and those guys, Dame Lillard and Trae Young, like she shoots from further away, and her court vision is certainly as good as anyone's I've ever seen. I don't want Asia Wilson to be out. Put her in the lineup. Let's go. I think the Fever rested, especially. They can beat the Aces on Wednesday. I don't doubt that. Don't talk about adding a face-up shot for fouling. Yeah, people do it all the time. Generally, yes, they don't become like elite shooters, but players expand their game and add shots all the time. LeBron couldn't shoot when his career started. Now he's a pretty damn good shooter. Does anybody like my phone is always spam, both the text messages and the phone side. I don't want to change my numbers too hard, but man, it's annoying. Kyle Hawaii says AR wasn't even the best rookie on the sky. Cardoso is clear. I mean, you may be right. We'll see how Cardoso does. I mean, she was picked higher. She was picked. The Angel's a bigger star. You know, she's a crossover star. More so than Camilla. I mean, yeah, that garbage. I disagree. I mean, they'll never have another season quite like this because it's unique in the way it has all come together. But this Clark thing is never going, it's not going anywhere. We are out. This is Michael Jordan on the ground floor. I've been saying it to y'all for the longest time, but it's the truth. You know, so the conversation in the NBA has been for the longest time, who's the new face of basketball? LeBron and Steph aren't going to do it forever. You know, and you went from Jordan to Kobe and Shaq to LeBron to Steph. Who's going to be the next face of basketball? And everybody keeps going like Anthony Edwards or not Dirk, Luka Doncic, whomever. It's Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is the new face of basketball. She just happens to play in the WNBA, not the NBA. Yeah, on the MVP ladder. Embarrassing. Truly. These are the numbers. 1.25 million, peaked at 1.6 on Ion, opposite Eagles Packers. I mean, why are you listening to him? That's all I would say about that. I think it might have changed. At the beginning of the season, I never or rarely had to buy a league pass to watch a Fever game. Just needed ESPN package. Oh, well, yeah, they're not on ESPN as much necessarily now. So Ion is not ESPN, obviously. Love CC's Fire, so entertaining. I don't know if ESPN is irrelevant, but they're mistaken. Yeah, I agree with this. It should have nothing to do with it. The ticket sales and all that have nothing to do with it, but the record does. The fact that they've won more this year than the last 2 year combined, I would say it speaks to her value on the court, as would the fact that she's producing more points than anyone ever has, as would the fact that she's going to break the all-time assist record, as for the fact that she's also already rebounded more than any guard ever, rookie guard ever has, and has as many 25 and 10 games as any player ever has in a career just this season. Put it this way. Take Caitlin Clark off the Fever against a fully healthy Aces team, or Liberty team. I'm sorry, like the Aces faced without Asia Wilson yesterday, and see how they do. Anything less than top 3 is not being serious. all WNBA first team should be a lock. I think she was just pissed. I saw her walk into the locker room quick, too. I think she was just pissed. I do think there's something to this. I mean, I think one of the reasons for Caitlin's popularity is because she's got a lot of male fans. And, like people have tried to draw these demographic distinctions. And I remember Bill Burr did a bit back in the day about why women's sports weren't as big as men's sports. And he was like, women, we're already watching the men's sports. You can't ask us to do the heavy lifting for you too and watch the women's sports. You got to support the women's sports. Well, what's happening now is a lot of men are watching Caitlin Clark play. And that's where the race thing makes me laugh too, because I don't know exactly how the demographics break down, but I've obviously been doing this channel and I've been in some of the more popular spaces with the CCFC, and a whole lot of the biggest Caitlin Clark fans, in those areas happen to be black. So, as I've said, you don't get this broadly popular, without being popular across the board with guys, girls, gay, straight, black, white, Asian, so on and so forth. If the Fever can just match Atlanta, they would get knocked out in the first. No, they beat Atlanta in the series. No question in my mind. The Lynx are the only team I would prefer them to avoid. I mean, I think Sides has given Clark the keys. I've been watching CC since last October. I'm going to go to withdrawals when the season is over. She's been going a long time. So she does deserve a break. Don't get me wrong. But that break would be, let's not count October because the playoffs. So November, December, January, February, March, April, May, like 7 months. She could still take 3 months off and play a little in the offseason. Yeah, we talked about that before. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The only players you can reasonably, with a straight face, argue are Asia and Nafisa. And I think Clark has an argument against anybody, including Asia. But those are the two that you could say with a straight face. Oh, yeah, she just keeps working. She doesn't need to do anything, no. But she may not want to take that much time off. And you never know what the other ventures could lead to. I think Caitlin has success. She was going to have success regardless. She was going to have success regardless. But we got to give Sides some credit for adapting and learning and evolving. I don't think I'm missing that. I think I pointed that out. I see this a little bit. I understand what you're getting at here. Pete, and by the way, I guess I should read that for anybody who's not looking at the screen. I hate these comparisons, but the Fever remind me of the LeBron Heat. CC, this is from Theodore Schultz. CC is LeBron, Kelsey is D Wade, AB is Bosch, and Lexi is Ray Allen. Not perfect, but this is the best comparison for me. Exactly, Pete. Everybody's going to be watching. Clark. It doesn't matter what race, gender, demo. Yeah, and this is what I was saying before. That's a long off season. So I think playing basketball is aside from what I said selfishly, is in her best interest to play some basketball. Of course, she needs a break, and she should take a break, and she doesn't probably need it financially. But you don't want to be off for that long. Because, I mean, you look at the NBA, they end for most teams in May, some teams in April, everybody else in June. But even the teams that play the furthest out, they go June, so they'd be off July, August, and September, and then back 3 months. This offseason for the team that plays longest is like 7 months. That's more than twice. So you can get a full NBA offseason while still doing something else in the offseason. I don't know if they played better without Asia, but they certainly didn't fall off the map, Robert, the Aces. They were in that game. But yes, I mean, Asia does not make the rest of the team. She doesn't elevate the rest of the team the way that Caitlin does. Which is why you can make the case that Sarah hit here is that Caitlin's the most impactful player in the WNBA. I think Tyrone is calling back to what I said about Angel, bigger star. I thought we were trying to win games at the end of the day. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm interested to see how this guy looked the rest of the year without AR. And it is strange that and maybe it was because Camilla was hurt. It probably was because Camilla was hurt early in the year, and Reese burst on the scene the way she did. That probably messed with the equation a little bit because generally the higher pick, they pick Camilla first in the draft, would be the one prioritized. I mean, I don't know reaching for the sun of who's broken the most star record, but she's certainly broken a lot of them. Seems like everyone. Martell, Caitlin is the new face of all of basketball. That's what I said earlier. I don't think Caitlin needed the Rookie of the Year thing at all. Myron says, I agree the WNBA would never have a season like this because Cece can't do it all alone. She had 30% help this year from Angel Reese and the Shy and the whole Rookie of the Year thing. I don't think it matters. I don't think anybody's watching Caitlin Clark to have a Rookie of the Year argument. I really don't. Angel can flourish in her own right. And sure, was that a big talking point? Did it get a lot of engagement? Yes. But you just watch the Fever and the Lynx game on Ion, 1 million viewers. The Rookie of the Year race is done. I don't think it matters. Clark she's the one. Greg says this may sound crazy, but may help solve the wide open threes that's killing the Fever. What? Is there sorry, man, it's hard for me to. I don't know what else you were saying. The problem with Lexi is she's a little undersized. So defensively, that's why Ryan Howard was still able to score over so much. Oh yeah, I mean, you might not be wrong, Beastie Son, that they'll snub her for first team all at WNBA, but that will be that will certainly be a talking point because there's no reasonable argument for her not being first team all WNBA. It's insanity. Insanity. WNBA hates Caitlin Clark. They just gave her. It's the strangest thing when somebody's that popular. Ab Scotland says they say CC didn't go up. When I looked at that video, I think she was going to the locker room through a different entrance. That's what it looked like to me. Oh, here we go. He said Lexi and Temi should take them one-on-one with no doubling. Everyone else should stay home and contest the. Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's part of their problem is the letting up the open threes. Defense is going to be the issue. Sorry, but you are overestimating that popularity bit. People are cashing in on the Clark train. Some could not care less outside of milking a cash cow. Okay, what makes it a cash cow? The popularity. I mean, like, this ain't hard to figure out. Post says Clark's style is easy to appreciate, and there's a lot more to it the more you pay attention. I hope that Asia plays, and I hope she's healthy in general, not just for this game. But they said it wasn't a big thing, so I'm hoping that I'm hoping she's good, whether she was playing the Fever or not. Obviously, I don't want her to be hurt. Sarah says I would watch reruns of the Fever games during the offseason to get my fix. Cindy says she does just that, watches them second time around. Ernesto says, Robin, if I ask you an honest question, are the ratings numbers, are they correct? Are they biased to gender? Do you know what I mean? No, I don't know what you mean. But I'll tell you this, the game on Ion between the Fever and the Sky, or no, not the game, but on Ion between the Fever and the Sky, I'm sorry. What was the game? The last NBA TV game did bigger numbers than all the NBA games on NBA TV last year. Amy K says, like Cynthia Cooper said, CC makes everyone around her play better, including teammates and opponents. That is true. For sure. El Golet says, it's funny, I was at the Liberty Aces game yesterday and the building was sold out. The Liberty has a huge fan base, but when you search YouTube for content, CC and Reese content is basically all you can find. Look, I've been there too. I took my daughter and they definitely have a good fan base there in Brooklyn at Barclays. I've noticed anecdotally that the Asia content is actually doing better than the Angel content, by the way, unless Angel is attached to Caitlin in the content that I've produced. Now, Liberty have some great players, and I think the fans in there, because I've been to a lot of Nets games too, really just appreciate good basketball, and it's a good basketball team. But yes, they certainly have a good home base and good crowd. Michael Asher says, this is one of the most chill chat rooms I've experienced on this platform. Is that a compliment to me? I'm taking it. Comfort Sheriff, CC had free reigns in college. What did she win? Do you think size is bad? Clark literally controlled Iowa, and what did it get her apart from personal stats? I don't know. To the national championship game back-to-back years in a program that never goes there. I mean, the college championship narrative is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I've literally never heard it brought up before, ever. In any, like, NBA. You've never heard in an NBA conversation somebody bring up college championship. Never happens. Carmelo Anthony is the closest I can remember that rookie year against LeBron, because people wanted the guy who won the college championship to get the rookie of the year because he had won in college. And then Carmelo was the one who got labeled a loser the rest of his career. For a while, at least, by some people. It was LeBron, Wade, and Carmelo that year. I think Wade was the second best rookie. But, that's beside the point. I've never heard it argued. And in women's basketball, traditionally, several of the programs are completely stacked. So anybody who goes to UConn has a chance to win a championship. Anybody who goes to South Carolina has a chance to win a championship. I mean, they cornered the market from Tennessee back in the day to UConn to now South Carolina. LSU has a good program, of course. So this girl goes to Iowa, who ain't never done nothing, and takes them to the championship back-to-back years while breaking all the records. I think that counts for something, just because they didn't win the last game against the perennially stacked programs. Clark in the playoffs will be Showtime, must-see TV, absolutely. I have not seen the list. I would have to look at it, but there's no possible argument for Caitlin Clark at 6. Alyssa Thomas can't even shoot. She never scores. And Caitlin is so much – Sabrina is a really good player. Caitlin is so much more dynamic than Sabrina. I mean, yeah, I agree in that – somewhere in that order. Asia, Collier, Clark, Ionescu, Stewart, only acceptable MVP ballot. Kennedy is definitely the best player on the Sky. I didn't, but Rick T says, do you think Sides and CC were having a slight disagreement during the first half? That happens all the time. You know? It's not abnormal. I don't think, or even unhealthy or any of these things. Somebody just said Diana Taurasi is retiring. Did she announce it? I haven't seen her announce it. Is it something? It's based on a Mercury tweet. Oh, if this is it, you have 2 more Well, it says if at the front of it. And no, there's not a chance that Caitlin will be a Valkyrie next season, Robert. Shank Pony says, look at all the CC WNBA records. Look in the description. Women's fast break on SI. I wrote a bunch of the ones that she's still likely to pass today. That's in the description. So many chats. I don't know who I don't know if some of y'all are talking to me or other people in the chat. Sometimes it's hard to keep up. Doing my best. If you want to yell at me, just say my name when you're yelling at me so I know. That way I can put it up and know it's directed toward me. Samantha says, just want to say thank you for always putting out good, informative, and respectful content. Thank you. I like to recognize those comments because it's something I've tried to do, and I'm glad that it's noticed. Darren says, for me, Caitlin is the most exciting player to watch play the game of basketball since MJ. Same feelings I had 35 years ago today when I watch her play today, just very different. I mean, like I said, it's like Michael Jordan on the ground floor. It really is. It really is. I have integrity, says Cindy. That is true, I would hope. I don't know about the other podcasters, but Caitlin is Sabrina on steroids. I mean, she's just much faster, much more explosive with the ball in her hands. Sabrina is the definition of like really good all around. She's like really good at everything, but she just doesn't have that special sauce that Caitlin has. And this is a good point. Coaches and players arguing happens a lot. Look at Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. Prodigal says CC will set her biggest record next game when she gets 11 more assists to break the all-time record. Yeah, very well may come in the next game. At worst, the game after. What's up, DJ? Fever fan from Chesapeake, Virginia. I came up in Maryland, not too far. I mean, Caitlin's turnovers, the only time they bother me is when they're sloppy or lazy. So many comments. Oh, I'm trying. Oh, yeah, you're clearing that one up. Yeah, Mercury, if this is it, you have. Well, that's like a way to try to sell tickets. If this is it. They didn't say this is it. You only have 2 more opportunities. So, all right. I think I got through most of them. You can still hit me up. I'll hang on for a few more minutes here. What did you guys think of the Super Bowl announcement? I was going with Kevin in the our group chat. He's like with the rest of the Drake fans crashing out that Kendrick Lamar is headlining halftime of the Super Bowl. All these people online are trying to blame Jay-Z and everything. Like, Jay-Z does select the Super Bowl halftime show. But, you know, Kendrick has had a generation. He's a generational artist who's had a generational year. What do you want Hov to do? First solo rapper to ever headline a Super Bowl as well. And, you know, they're accusing Jay of hating on Drake and Nicki and Lil Wayne. The Lil Wayne one is funny because he helped pay his taxes in the past. And he and Drake did have like a bit of a cold war for a while. And, you know, Hov called Drake out on a track. Sorry, Mrs. Drizzly, for so much our talk. Silly me talking about stuff that I really bought. And Drake never responded to that, but they've collabed in the past. There's a little bit of I think, tension because of when Jay-Z formed Tidal, the streaming service. Drake was supposed to be a part of that and then backed out. And I think he went with Apple at the time. But Kendrick Lamar is being selected because Kendrick Lamar is, you know, aside from maybe Taylor Swift, the hottest artist in the world right now. So, I mean, Drake probably took the biggest L I ever seen anybody take publicly, like in a you know, serious. Well, some of it is, you know, there is some stuff there, but as far as just like a public clowning, this is about as I don't think his career is ever going to be the same. And J. Cole too. Like J. Cole's tough to take seriously. Who's Drake? Says AJ. Prodigal says Drake taking so many L's. Basil says, what the fuck? Oh, sorry. WTF is Kendrick. Don't care, I guess. Yeah, well, that's the other thing Drake fans try to pretend. Not that you're a Drake fan. I know you're not. That Kendrick is some sort of irrelevant artist who didn't sell 20 million records and didn't have the longest charting album ever in Good Kid, Mad City and hasn't won Grammys and didn't have the highest selling rap tour at one point in the past. I don't think they snubbed Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne ain't as good as Kendrick. Kendrick is better than Lil Wayne. He's a better artist. He's a better performer. He's hotter right now. And did you see Wayne at WrestleMania? I don't think Wayne currently, I don't think it would be a good look for him to do the Super Bowl. Kendrick was a part of that show. Eminem, Dre, 50. But I would now, at this point, after what happened in the battle in this the year in hip hop that Kendrick has had, Kendrick's on the Mount Rushmore for me. He's in the top 3. The 3 greatest rappers of all time to me are Jay-Z, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar. Thank you for joining the chat, Sarah. I guess back to the original topic, Janet Storm says, football started yesterday. I didn't even know until my boyfriend told me. And I was a huge fan, but yesterday I just wanted to watch the Fever game. Before this year, I never watched a WNBA game. It is pretty wild. Matthew Mao, CC is a generation player. She's on a whole different level, just like MJ was. I mean, Kendrick is better than Wayne, man. To me, he is. Here's the difference. Kendrick says something. Wayne's never really said anything. To me. Look, Weezy had I remember Weezy's real run, like with the Carter albums and the No Ceilings mixtapes. Like, I'm not new to this. But to me, Kendrick is better. And he's certainly at a higher level right now. And I think he's clearly a better performer. Ice Cube deserves some love. He wrote all that NWA stuff back in the day. I would love it. Damn, I wish I was there. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. DMB, who's offering me tickets to the Fever Aces game on Friday, but you never know. If I can make it, I'll certainly take you up on that. I really appreciate you even offering it across here. Catherine Dugan says CC had another collection of Wilson basketball sell out in under an hour today too. Katie says CC is a bit of an underdog in a way. She gets discredited a lot. Yeah, well, I mean, she does get discredited a lot. That's for sure. And it's funny that people didn't think what she did in college would translate. It's a little nuts, considering how dominant her college time was. Magdalena says, I'd rather watch CC in the Indiana Fever. Where was that Kendrick Dylan? This is interesting. Kendrick is Dylan in rap form. Bob Dylan, not Dylon. But, I mean, yeah, Kendrick is a true artist. He's a true artist and master of his craft. I mean, we've seen that on display throughout this battle that led to this. But that's because Kendrick is a serious individual. He takes his art very seriously. And he's a genius. Some people are just a genius at what they do. And Kendrick is a genius when it comes to that craft. Amy K says, Asia is a great player, but they anointed her too early because they thought she was robbed last year. Yeah, there was an argument about Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson last year. We'll see. I think what happens in these next two games will help with all that, for sure. I think that will help with all that. Determining, I don't think there's any way that Clark actually wins the vote, just because of some of the stuff that we've seen all season. But I think if she were, let's say, the Fever to win both those games, and she has big performances in both, the drum is going to get mighty loud. Dennis says CC once scored 60 in high school against Mason City, Iowa on the road, and the students lined up for autographs after the game. Look, I mean, she's been doing it for a minute now. She didn't just get popular. That's, I think, something people fail to realize as well. Caitlyn didn't just get popular. She's been popular. And more people became aware of it and everything. But she's been popular. For sure. Element Gold says CC stands for cha-ching. I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, what are we, September 9th? First third of September? I've had a big month all around. And aside from me, she's the individual most responsible for it. Maybe even more than me. So, but that's why I got so consumed by this story, because it was so fascinating. First of all, I mean, I saw the interest, like it was clear and apparent. I see people coming into this room. But it was also interesting. And there were so many different layers and dynamics to it. And I used to say back in the day, we should have just done an all LeBron show the way he was talked about. Kind of the same thing here. All right, y'all. That's probably about it for me today. Been on for an hour or so, right? Let me know. I'll give you guys another 90 seconds or so for any other comments, important comments that I may have missed. Katie says they should take the names off the MVP voting, show the stats, and vote for player A, B, C, just to see what happens for fun. Samantha, I have to see the matchups. Based on the current standings, she's asking if I see any playoff upsets. And let me look at the current standings. Hang on. I think the Fever beat the Sun. How about that? Storm and Aces would be interesting. That'd be a fun series. I think the Lynx handle the Mercury and the Liberty handle the Sky or the Dream. So the best chances for upsets would be the Storm over the Aces, but I would pick the Fever over the Sun in a playoff series because their ability to score. T Black says CC will never be the best as long as Asia and Stewie are in the league. We'll see. I mean, I'm not so sure she ain't the best now. It's close. CC is going to go nuclear on sides after the Vegas games. Why do y'all want to hate sides so much? Night Owl. Element Gold says, good job. Chat. You too, Robin. AJ says, peace. Post says, thanks. All right, y'all. I'm sure we'll get to another one later in the week. Everybody stay happy, healthy, safe. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel below. Make sure you check out Women's Fast Break on SI for more coverage. There's a link in the description below. JD Mac with some emojis. I agree, Dennis. They don't want to play the Lynx in the first round. I disagree, T Black, that she's not even the best on her team. All those players were already on the team when they sucked. And that's with the utmost respect for Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, who've been balling, and Lexi Hull, who's played a huge role. But they were all there before when the Fever were no good. What's the difference now? Why is it different now? Do you have an answer for that before I sign off? Zal Sensor says, thanks. Kayla Mendenhall said the WNBA Spaces said they think that Atlanta will upset Liberty in the first round. I disagree. Nancy says good night to everyone. Good night, Nancy. All right, y'all. That'll do it for me. Until next time. Eat.